Alright guys, another summer rain is here, so it's time for another summer rain review. There has definitely been some changes this year, so let's just start with that. First off, I'll say that this year's summer rain this time around has been much better. No more re-adding previously unobtainable items, making them permanent, screwing over the people that grinded for them the year prior. Base level items sticking around forever has now become the status quo. And finally, there are free vehicles to be acquired by all. I honestly have to say this summer has been the best so far for ATF 8, and I am, for the most part, pleased with what we got. But that doesn't mean that this summer rain didn't come with some controversy, namely the Flash Pass. The Flash Pass is a new addition to summer rain. Unlike your normal or base levels, or even the limited time summer rain levels, these are levels you have to pay for to begin unlocking the new Flash Pass items. The Flash Pass is about $10 worth of scrap points, and once you buy it, you have the chance to unlock all the items that are paid for an entire year. That is just the Flash Pass items, however. All the other items will be taken off sale at their normal times on September 5th, no matter if you paid the $10. But to me, even then, it feels kinda wrong to make people pay to AFK farm, even more than they were doing. But other than outright getting rid of the Flash Pass, if you did anything else, it would undermine the point and the identity of summer rain. If it just gave you all the items the second you paid, then it's really just a limited time item pack. And at that point, you can throw that anywhere in the year. But at the same time, if people wait to buy the Flash Pass, then that's more levels that they have to grind out for. For an example, let's say someone grinded to level 60 or so before they bought the Flash Pass. Now they have to grind another 60 hours because they weren't getting those levels alongside the free ones. But at the same time, he also does still give you a year to grind out only 125 levels. Meaning if you literally did just a single hour a day, you would have had this done before the year is even halfway over. I still think that probably doesn't matter to a lot of people though, and most people are probably going to see it as the fact that they have to pay Chad to do more work, which me personally, I don't find that to be a big issue. But to appease the people, I think there should be two solutions to this. Either make it so you still collect the Flash Pass levels even if you don't pay for the pass, so when someone does decide to do it, their progress matches everything else. Or cut the level time in half for pass items, making it 30 minutes. I think the first solution is better, because I also think it is a good psychological marketing strategy, because if they see they already have those levels to unlock those items, they might be more inclined to just be like, alright, might as well pay for it since I don't have to grind it anyway. But to come back to the other thing on everyone's mind when it comes to this, and it's monetizing a long-standing free event. So while thankfully being an additional summer rain level instead of adding a tax to the free stuff in summer rain, I still think it has the same problems that the Christmas boxes have, which is even more content and even more work has to go into a single event. I'm kinda actually worried about if the development team is just being absolutely overworked, Chad included, trying to get all these items out for all these events. Which is honestly pretty sad, because while you have to keep new content coming out to keep people's attention, you should also focus on improving and fixing what's already out there. Now, I think the average person is probably thinking that this is just a money-hungry, heartless move to squeeze every nickel and dime out of the fan base before they wrap this up and just move on to the next game. But I think this brings up a more serious issue behind the scenes, and it's something I've been paying very close attention to since the release of the Wasteland merchant subscription. And it's the idea that this game isn't sustainable for Chad anymore, and that he needs to make the game more profitable so he can keep his full attention on the game. I don't really want to say much else about it because all of this is super speculative, but the point to make is that there is probably some sort of reasonable motivation behind adding paid for content other than just Chad and the development team loving money so much and don't care about the community at all. Of course, I would love to hear about all of this from Chad himself, because I think there is just absolutely a large disconnect between the community and the production of ATF. And I think it would be important to shine some light into what's going on backstage so people are more understanding instead of jumping to the worst conclusions, just creating this toxic love-hate echo chamber. And if you couldn't tell, this is something that definitely needs its own video. But anyway, now on to the big question. Is your $10 worth it for these 9 items? I find that half of these items are worth it, but I feel like the top tier namesake items are completely outcompeted by both the normal level and summer rain level items. And I absolutely feel that some of these items should have been flipped around, which I'll break down when I look at each item. And moving right on to that, I'll start with the summer rain items and move on to the flash pass items, excluding the normal level items because they are permanent level locked items, not actual seasonal limited time event items. Also, it would just basically double the video time. So we'll be starting off in order of level with the Ranger 12, which is the good old lever action shotgun. I have been waiting to see this one in game for a while. It comes in red and brown furniture, which it's honestly surprising they didn't make a polymer model. I guess they sort of did with the bonus modern stuff, but this is one of those few items I would say they should probably commit to giving us a full polymer variant, like what we saw with the Lawrence lever action, because I feel like the polymer stuff clashes too much with the wood, and that muzzle brake really stands out with its color. I also wish we would have gotten customization for the barrel. At bare minimum, there should have been a shorter barrel to match the stockless configuration, and some longer wood paneling to match the longer magazine. Also, the sound effects I think are great, but just horribly misused and confusing, because to operate the lever when firing, it's the normal lever action sound effect. But when you reload and operate the lever, it's all of a sudden a different sound effect, which is just so jarring. I think they should have just fully committed to using the new sound effects or taken them to some other gun. So in the end, it's solid as long as you don't look too hard in the customization menu. Next, the Kochi Cayman, or God, man, what are these names? It's just a Mac 11. Well, I think it's a Mac 11 or 10. Kinda got a little Uzi Pro with that customization, and you could even argue that it's a micro Uzi. It doesn't really matter. The point is, where's my stock? How are you gonna add a rail for sights, a front attachment point with its own custom front grip, a barrel option that is longer than that grip, and then not give it a stock? Especially when comparing it to any of those guns that I just named, all are capable of having stocks on them. Also, I wish we could get some magazine options too here, because this in spirit feels like a non-scrappy version of the Natalie, which, my God, does the model look dated compared to this thing. Another thing is when you add the custom front grip, the character doesn't actually grab it, which is pretty sad to see. In total, it's another solid gun that fits in between the sea of tactical and scrap, and it just needs a little polishing on the customization. Next, the AS Val at level 9. Surprisingly, it comes with more customization than the SVD, however, that isn't really saying much. 2 attachment points are basically empty, you get magazine options, 3 stock options, and its own custom scope, which isn't universal, so I can't put it on my SVD. This thing really needs some muzzle customization options with a shorter barrel to match the no stock and a more run-down homemade barrel to match the wooden stock. To me, it's one of those filler guns you typically find in Summer Rain, and most people probably won't get that much use out of it unless they're Russian gun fans or have been looking for a suppressed rifle. Next is the EF90 at level 18, which, let me just zoom past this one, it's almost exactly like the AS Val. It's just the AUG. It comes with the bare minimum customization, and it's another filler gun unless you're USRF. And if you are USRF, then I'd say definitely use the MR body. It's actually pretty cool, I can't even lie. Next, the Energy MK5 at level 36, which I believe is a gun stolen from another game, but I can't lie, this gun looks cool as hell. This is a nice sci-fi gun. It keeps the glow to a bare minimum and has 2 variants, both with a handmade and a polymer variant. And it has the neat little touch of doing what the Trident does, which is go from a blue to red on the magazine to show that it is running out of ammo. So the glow actually does serve some sort of purpose. And even the variants do different things instead of just changing the looks, like adding an EMP effect, which you could actually see in the bullet splash, but not anymore for some reason. To me, this is an amazing sci-fi gun if you overlook that the inspiration and one of the variants is just a gun from another game. Next, the Prometheus drone at level 60, and it's a thingamabob for sure. I'm glad they gave us a blank version instead of just the alumni version. I like how it looks, but the blade sticking out of it is kind of comical. Honestly, I think the concept of a melee drone is kind of lame. I feel like that was just a way to underpower it, like they didn't want to give it a gun, but they didn't just want to make it another recon drone. I wish they would have done a little more by giving it a stun gun instead of just blades. It makes the drone basically a one-time use. I mean, even the blades look like they are made to get stuck in flesh with those barbs. Next, the ACS-20 at level 100. This one is a weird one. It almost looks tactical, and it kind of looks outdated, honestly. Like, it's not the super sci-fi or tactical. It looks like a gun that came before that, and that odd dark yellowish green. I don't know who this gun is honestly for. It's full auto and has the HK slap, which I guess is something cool. I think it's one of those mid guns that are just gonna get minimal use because of its odd color and style. And finally, the Dune Buggy Deputy at level 200. And I'm just kind of lost on how they let this happen. Because one, I think they made the two versions of this car too similar to justify the split. Like, you could have just made all of this one car with customization and put it either in the Flash Pass or made it a limited time item. And when comparing the two, I think the free one is much better and should have been the permanent item. Now, at first, it may be hard to tell the Desperado and the Deputy apart, but let me break it down. The difference is the Desperado, aka the free version, has a hood scoop, different, simpler headlights, wheel covers, and different monitors by the driver. There is, as far as I can tell, nothing else different about them. They both have the side skirts, armored windows, and they both have the same headlights and Desperado bumper, and they both have the spare tire or rear gunner seat. I think the Desperado with the Deputy headlights, which by the way aren't in the customization menu, so if you remove them from the Deputy, then you have to reload the car and start again. The Deputy is just such a boring variant compared to the Desperado. I don't get what the decision was to put these cars where they are. And with all of that out of the way, we move on to the Flash Pass. And first we have the, I'm not actually really sure how to read this, because it might be LXXVII or 11, but at the same time, that entire name is actually just Roman numerals, and it equals 77, or if you exclude the L, then it's 27. Anyway, you get this at level 1, and it's just the Desert Eagle without the very noticeable muzzle brake. I think it's a whatever gun. It's got a cool firing sound, but I think it needed more customization with different slide colors. Next, the Chicxulub, or something like that, at level 5. It's very clear it's the rifle version of the ACS, being a very similar style. In fact, this one actually came out first. The ACS came out with the second wave of summer rain. And the same can be said about this gun that I said about the ACS. But I also don't really like this firing sound. It just doesn't really sound like an actual gun at all. I almost want to say it sounds something like ceramic. However, the Gauss gun version is where it shines best, because I feel like that firing sound is meant to be a Gauss gun, how it pairs very nicely with the crackle sound effect. Also, both Gauss gun barrels do look very cool. I just wish these barrels were on a different gun though. Next, the Paradigm, which is a gel shotgun. However, it shoots gel that freezes instead of burns, which apparently that was a thing they just kind of tucked away in their back pocket, where there are different kinds of gel that have different effects, which we haven't really seen much of until now. But I don't know about this one. It feels like a novelty gimmick, especially the whole cold thing. I don't think it would actually be that useful. I think also that holo sight is over the top comical, and they did a much better job with the old Super Colt and the new Wolf Eye sights. There isn't really much else to say about it, because there isn't really much you can do with it. Now on to the X14 droids at level 20. I think they're pretty good. What's really great about them is how they let you customize the rig. This is something I've been wishing for a while now, because this lets you use the kit as a launch pad for customization if you're not sure how to start making complex figures such as droids. I do have to say, I feel like the heads for these droids are a little bit goofy looking, especially that disc-shaped one. It looks like it belongs in Star Wars. And next, the Bren gun at level 35. And just how is this an item you actually have to pay for? Like, are you serious? I don't get this trend of adding foreign World War II LMGs to the game with no other customization other than just adding and removing the bipod to submarine. And let's just not forget about that this is a paid for item. And it's one thing adding a historical gun to the game, but it's just another adding it one-to-one to the game with zero explanation. Because think about it, this gun is a pretty forgotten foreign firearm that is over 200 years old at this point. How in the world is someone in America going to get their hands on this gun, think it's a good idea to remake it exactly how it is, and make it in enough numbers to justify adding it to the game? And through like the 90 years of post-apocalypse, there has been zero modifications to this thing. Nobody has thought that it needs any improvements. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like the Bren gun, just not here. Next, the Swarmer drone, which apparently is actually backwards. Also really annoying that the only options for this drone is with faction markings. And again, it's a ramming droid, which I think is just a really silly concept. Unless you're a faction that can afford to waste drones by suicide charging them into people, it's kind of useless for your average Wastelander. And then we have the ATV at level 55, which was once the king, and then it fell from grace. Seriously, how is this another paid for item? A little ATV? I feel like a lot of the people bought into the Flash Pass early because of the ATV, before the other cars dropped. And I think they were genuinely tricked into thinking that the ATV was the only vehicle they could get their hands on and was the top prize. And now there is a permanently free car. I absolutely think some people are feeling ripped off. And rightfully so. And the cherry on top about all of it is just the zero customization and how really janky it is at that. It's really just a sad sight now. Okay, on to the home stretch with the Knoll AULCW at level 100. And it's just an arm-mounted machine gun. I know it's supposed to pair with the Exosuit, so it isn't as ridiculous, but man, this thing is just doing too much. It would be more forgiving if it wasn't just so bulky. It's just a nonsensical weapon. And if it was much more slimmer and compact, I think it would be more acceptable. But instead we got this, and I just don't get it. It's such a novelty item, and it's banking off a gimmick. And the problem is, it just looks weird, and it makes no sense unless you pair it with some sort of prosthetic suit or anything else. Because then if not, how is it attached, and how are you holding it one-handed? I mean, where do you even hold it? It basically just needs to be paired with the Exosuit. Or you have to go out of your way to make your own thing to make it work. And speaking of the Exosuit, the Sentinel L68. I like that we're getting a more serious Exosuit compared to the industrial Lift Max, although I do like that much more pronounced Exosuit look, but the fact that you can customize it, I think completely makes up for it, if they ever get it fixed. But in terms of power, it's very obvious they tried to balance and nerf it as absolutely hard as possible. It's pretty underwhelming what it can do. Also, the whole need of constant maintenance is also supposed to be a handicap, but that means next to nothing to nobody in RP. No one is actually going to realistically do that. They, at most, would acknowledge it and say they did it off camera. Also, stopping a single pistol caliber is just so garbage, considering how literally almost every single pistol, except for a few, are semi-auto. aka you are allowed to fire multiple shots in a single action making this bullet resistance completely useless. All in all, it's pretty underwhelming, especially factoring in that it's the grand item for the paid for levels. And with that, we're done with Summer Rain of 2024. And did I answer the question of, is the Flash Pass worth it? And well, I guess the answer is no, not really. I mean, if you really wanted something in particular inside the Flash Pass, I mean, sure, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the free half of Summer Rain. A lot of these items desperately needed to be switched around, considering how the permanent free items included a flamethrower and a belt-fed LMG, while we had to pay for the Bren machine gun. But I guess there's nothing for it now, which I just really hate to say. It feels so hopeless when it feels like you get absolutely screwed over and the only thing you get out of it is, well, better luck next time. Like, sure, it's good to learn from this, but it still doesn't fix the damage. In fact, if I wanted to see the new improvements they made over last year, I'm gonna have to pay to get the items. I mean, isn't that a silly concept of them correcting their mistake, but you still have to pay for it? I think this is just such an awful business model, and I feel like this is how you lose any sort of trust you had from your fan base. It feels like the first thought is the bottom dollar, and then the second thought is quality control in the community. I said this before in my review of Christmas of 2024, but I think they desperately need to stop putting more and more things on their plate for every event, from doubling the Christmas boxes to adding even more Summer Rain items. I think it is time to take a quality over quantity approach so more thought and care can be put into each item they add, and more time can be spent on improving the guns. And yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about this year's Summer Rain and what I thought about the items, and yeah, I'll see y'all around.